Yes, students. So, welcome to the second video. In the previous video, what we have seen, if you remember and you have taken the test, that interaction, what we have done in the previous video is the concept of communication, elements of communication. We have also discussed what is the importance of models. And in this video, we are going to understand with examples three very basic models of communication and one very important digital model of communication. So should we start? So the first model, it is called linear model of communication. In the linear model of communication, first a message is transmitted and then the message is received. That means it is a very direct consequence of the sent message and the received message. It can proceed in only one way. In most cases, linear models do not take into consideration any feedback that may be sent from the recipient to the sender. The communicator who initiated the contact is given primary importance in these models rather than the receiver of the communication. Please remember, this is a very primitive model of communication. Communication is said to be linear when it consists of a sender who encodes and sends a message and a receiver who receives the message and decodes it. So the process remains the same, but it moves into just one direction. The following are maybe the examples of components that make up linear communication models. First component is a sender. He is the person who makes the first statement in a conversation, is known as a sender of that statement. Consider the situation in which you are required to send an email to your manager informing them of some approaching deadline. When you decide to type out an email and then send it to your manager, you are initiating a discussion with that person. So this is the understanding of the word sender in the process of linear model. The sender maintains control over both the communication channels and the substance of the message they are conveying. The sender is also responsible for encoding the communication in a manner that is easy enough for the recipient to decipher. For example, in order to explain a complicated topic in a way that a little child may comprehend, the sender must adjust the word that they use. So this is also a sender-specific model. What is the element of message in this model? The message is a representation of any communication that takes place between a sender and a recipient, whether it is verbal or written. It is possible for messages to be sent on purpose or inadvertently. In most cases, the sender decides on the message that they wish to express to the recipient based on what it is that they wish to send. The recipient also is equally responsible for the comprehension of the message. When we look at the oldest model of communication, that is the Aristotelian model of communication, according to Aristotle's model of communication, the message can have an effect on the people who are listening to it or who are receiving it. It is absolutely necessary for the recipient to interpret the message and understand the relevance of what it says. That means the onus of this message, this communication to get successful is almost equally on the sender and the receiver. What is the component of channel in a linear model? In linear communication, the term channel refers to the mode of transmission that the sender decides upon before communicating. For instance, if you see a co-worker in a parking lot before the start of your shift, you can decide to give them a very friendly wave and then say hello. The wave itself acts as the medium for communication. Voice or non-verbal communication are both valid forms of channeling. A verbal communication can be thought of as anything that is expressed through the use of words and language, regardless of whether those words and language are spoken, written, typed, or expressed in any other form. Movements, facial expressions, and even touch can sometimes be considered to be forms of non-verbal communication. One communication channel may be chosen over other depending on the type of message being sent, the preferences of the sender, and the nature of the sender's connections to the recipient. Now, the final aspect or the component is called the receiver. How it is important in this particular model? When communicating in a linear fashion or linear model, the party that receives messages from the sender is known as the receiver. They are responsible for deciphering or otherwise understanding the message that they have received. For example, if a message from your employer suggesting a chat later in the day as a result of your efforts arrives in your email, you might perceive it as a suggestion to have a conversation later in the day. Nevertheless, according to Bell-Ross theory, now this is another very important aspect of the linear communication. So what Berlow is telling us, now this is a little suggestion here. We are providing you with lot of content as a part of your study material. So to know more about Berlow's theory, please refer to the study material provided with this. So according to the Berlow's theory, the way in which a recipient perceives the message is dependent on recipient's surroundings, his history, and other variables. Now here is a very important element or maybe very exclusive element called noise in this linear model of communication. When communicating in a linear fashion or linear model, there is always a possibility of inference or interference from background noise. So the term noise refers to any internal or external component that alters the communication, breaks the channel, affects the interpretation, or changes the meaning. For example, if you are totally engrossed in a project, you can miss your phone, you can miss your call since you are completely focused on it. So the sender's capacity to communicate their message is hindered by the internal noise they are experiencing. One other example, we can say that when an individual has a slow internet connection, which results in an email not loading, this is the background noise that is making it difficult for you to hear, and that is difficult to comprehend. This is a kind of a digital noise which we all have decided upon. Today is also one of the most complicated time we are all living in with lot of digital noises. This was about the linear model. Thank you.